Okay, so this is the end of like the first section of this Coding for Beginners course. And what we're going to do now is we're going to do an exercise. So we haven't done one of these before. The idea is we're going to take everything we've learned so far and then try and use it to actually build a web page. So when you do coding, you don't normally just say, right, what shall I do? I'll do a div. You're normally copying something. So copying a design that you've made, like in Sketch or Adobe XD, or maybe you're copying it from, I don't know, anywhere else. And then you kind of work out, right, how am I going to put this into code and how am I going to replicate that? So rather than designing it in Sketch or Adobe XD or something like that, what I've done is I've created what we're going to design. So it's this. So, I'll scroll up to the top. There we go. So this is the web page we're going to design. Now, obviously, it's not brilliant. I'm not claiming this is fantastic, but I know that we can make this with the tools that we have so far. Now, there's a couple of tricks that I'll kind of add in while I'm showing this one. But for example, if I hit About, then it's going to scroll down to the About section. Fantastic. And if I click on Services, it's going to scroll down to the Services section. So this should be pretty good because we can replicate this. Like everything you're seeing on screen, you can do this. We can do this. So what we'll do is we'll go through this slowly and we will build out this web page. And then that will kind of be the end of this first section. We've learnt stuff, we've applied it, and we've made a web page. And then we'll take that, and then we'll move on to the next section. Okay, so let's do this. If this is our current file that we've been working on. When we last spoke, it was logo and a button. So let's just kind of get rid of all this. This is rubbish. Now, in fact, what I'm going to do, I'm going to completely remove everything from the file. So let's save that and refresh. Right, blank screen. This is great. Let's just start from scratch. Now, if you remember in the first video, we installed the code editor, Visual Studio Code. And so if you have that, then there's a shortcut if you want to kind of start a new HTML file. If you type in HTML, and then it's this one, HTML5, and hit enter, then it gives you like this kind of boilerplate code. It pretty much says, hey, this is what you need to start your HTML file. So rather than writing it from scratch, you can use this. Now, you can start from scratch if you want. You just start typing in stuff, But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that. There's a few things in here that we don't need to know about yet. Like I'll just say, so this thing is, this kind of helps your site be responsive. So it can work on mobile, desktop, and all that kind of stuff. We don't have to worry about that for the moment because we don't need it. This one is if you want to be compatible with like old Internet Explorer and things like that. We don't care about that. This one talks about what character set the file was using. However, we don't really need to worry about that because it's HTML5 and we've got this little declaration at the top. But I will keep everything else. So doc type HTML is something that you should have in every file because it kind of explains, hey, I'm using HTML5. This is what the document is, and really you can't do without that one, so we'll keep that one in. And then, we normally start off with HTML at the top. So this is what you're probably used to if all you've seen is what I've been showing you, where it starts off HTML, but we will keep that in. So that just tells the browser that we're working in the English language, and we're going to be putting in some Latin, just like dummy text. And if we don't put this, then it thinks it really is Latin, and it's going to try and translate it. So we'll let the browser know, hey, we're working in English. So I'll just leave that. And so this should look pretty much like what we're expecting. We've got, if you think about it, I'll kind of indent everything so you can see. So we've got the head at the top. Now remember, those are the things that don't appear in the file. So we can give this whatever name we want in the title. So we went over that a while ago. So I'll just call this exercise 1. And then we've got our head, great. And then just below that we have the body, and then we can move the body out if we want as well. So hopefully you can kind of see what's going on there. Everything's between the two HTML tags. We've got some stuff in the head. All we've got is the title actually. And then we've got the body. And the body is where we do the, all of the work, where everything that appears on screen is going to appear in the body. So let's do this. Let's get going. If I save this and refresh, the only thing that's changed is the tab title. Now it says exercise 1, so we're getting there. We're on our way. So let's do this. Okay, so let's look at the first section. This big section on here, see, let's call that the header, because that's the section where, in theory, there's navigation, there's the logo and all that kind of stuff. So what we're going to do is we are going to go to our body. I'm not going to do massive spaces. I'll just do a few kind of spaces so you can see the code clearly, but I won't make it as spacious as before. We could do anything in here, really. I can, there's different ways to start. I can either just, this is obviously an H1. It's like the biggest text on the page. And then we're going to use hyperlinks for these two. So I can just go straight into it and say, right, let's do an H1. And what does it say? It says Acme Inc. in capital letters. And then just below that, there's little hyperlinks. So if I press A and then tab, this is great because obviously Visual Studio Code gives me shortcuts like this. It's ready to start typing in my hyperlink. So we'll just leave that for the moment. I won't point it to anywhere, the hyperlink, but I do need to write in some words. So I'll write in about, and then I need 2 of those hyperlinks. So let's copy that and paste it. And then this one is going to say services, and I can save that, and then I can refresh my page and we'll see what it looks like. Now that doesn't look anything like this one here, but the HTML is still the same because it's an H1 tag, and then we've got 2 hyperlinks, and that's fine. All right, there we go. Okay, that's pretty cool. Now, I know that we're going to want the background of this whole section to be grey. It's like a grey colour here. So that means that this section, these 2 are kind of all together. Acme Inc. and the 2 hyperlinks are together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap them up in a div, but not just any div. I'm going to use the header tag, because that's really what this is at the top. It's the header, it's the navigation and things like that. So what I'll do is I'll type in header, and then it's going to give me the closing tag. So I'll bring that one down to the bottom so that everything is now within the header. And then what I'll do is I'll indent all of this stuff. Whoops, not that one. There we go. Okay, cool. So there we go. So within my body, I have a header. And then within my header, I have an H1, which is the title, and 2 hyperlinks. So there's 3 things inside the header. And what we know is that I can style the header. I can apply a class or an ID to the header. I can apply classes or IDs to the H1 and the hyperlinks. I won't do anything for the moment. We'll just kind of leave it at that. So in terms of the HTML, that's kind of correct. In terms of HTML, I'm done with the first section at the top. That's really done from a HTML point of view. Everything else is just styling, is CSS. So what we'll do is we can either style it now, or we can write the HTML for the next section. But I think what we should do is we should actually style this right now and just kind of get it over and done with, and then we'll move on to the next section, okay? Right, so here we go. I know that I need the whole section grey, so it doesn't make any sense to style the H1 background grey and then the hyperlinks, because I need this whole section. So I think we need to actually style the header. So let's do this. I can do a few things. I can either apply a class or an ID, but to be honest, the simplest way to do this is, remember, we put the styles in the head. So I'm going to type in style. This is what we did a couple of videos ago. Let's just get rid of all the spaces. Now in here, I think what we should probably do is just type header, because that's a tag. I don't need to apply a class to it. I'm just going to go for the tag header, because I'm not going to create any other tags called header on this page. There's only going to be one. So I don't need a class. I don't need an ID. I just put header, and that is the tag. And so within that header, I'm going to add my properties and my values. Now we know that it's probably background color, because that's what we've been using this whole time. Background color. And I can put grey. I mean, I'm not sure what that's going to look like. Let's save that and have a look. Oh, whoops, that's not the one we're going. This is the one we're making. Whoa, okay. We're getting there, but that's not great, is it? It doesn't look that exciting. First off, it's too dark. And then also, it looks a bit rubbish because it's so close to the text. You know, I think we need some padding and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, we're moving on. I tell you what, because I made this file, I know exactly what color it was. It's CCC. So rather than just doing grey, which is one of kind of the default colors it gives me, I'm going to put in the hex code. So I know that this is CCC CCC. And then I'll save it, and then we will refresh the page. Now that is the same color grey, because I made this page. There we go. And that's great. I've now put a background color on the whole of the header, but you know, we're still far from finished, aren't we? So we're just going to need to keep going. So what's different between the two? I'll tell you one thing that's different. Well, let's do the H1 first. The H1 is massive, and it's a different font. So we can do that right now. Let's work on the H1. So if I come down to the H1 right here, Acme Inc. Again, I don't need to add a class to it, because there's only going to be one H1 on this page. So let's just write H1 and let's style this thing. I type H1, I open my curly brackets, and there's a few things I want to do to it. So we've done font size so far. Let's go for font size, and I think it's around 100 pixels. I'll do my little semicolon because I'm going to do more to the H1. Let's save it and see what it looks like. Refresh. Not bad. That's pretty good. Okay, I'm okay with that. But it's a different font, and so what I can do is, I know, and we haven't actually done this yet, so apologies, but we can add this in now. if I type in font family, which is a little bit like font size, font family says, okay, what font is this? And we could go for Arial. So if I save that, Arial, that looks okay, but that's not the one I chose here. Was Korea. I quite like Korea. It's quite fun. It's a bit old school. So if I type in Korea, I think I'm pronouncing that right. There we go. That's correct. Okay, this is looking good. We're kind of, again, we're getting there. Wait, that looks way bigger, doesn't it? I thought it was 100 pixels, but obviously it's not. Maybe it's 50 pixels. We'll change that in a second. Okay, so that's good. We're getting there. And then the font looks okay. Oh, I tell you what, this font's wrong as well. Now, one thing you'll notice is actually the whole page is in Korea. Like everything on this page is Korea. So I could go the slow way. The slow way is that I could then style the hyperlinks and change the font family to Korea. But this is going to get a bit silly. So rather than doing this, let's make this a little bit simpler. Let's delete that. And I should just put the font family on the whole page. I'll just define it once. So this is what you would do. I type in body, which means everything in the body. Let's style the whole body. And it's just a tag like any other tag, so I can use it. If I type in body and then put font family Korea, then everything on the page is going to be the same font family. So let's try that. Let's come back to my little file. And there we go. And so anything I add now is just going to be Korea. And that makes sense. I don't want to style every single element if it's all got the same thing. Okay, all right, this is looking pretty good. The next thing I think we should do is let's put all the text in the middle. Now, again, if you look, everything's in the middle on this page. Just to make it simple, I made everything in the middle. So let's do that. Rather than styling the H1 and everything, again, we'll do it on the body. And I think we've done this one, haven't we? So, yeah, I'm sure we have. So it's text align, colon, and then we're going to put center. I'm not sure if we have done that, actually. I hope we have. I'll save that, and then I'll refresh the page. And there we go. This is looking pretty good. It's now in the middle. And like I said, because I've done it on the body, everything on the entire page is going to be in the center, which is great. So I think the only thing left to do is, one, the font's too big. And then there's a lot of padding around the outside. Can you see that there's a lot of space between the H1 and the border? So we need to add in a bit of padding and reduce the font size a bit. So H1, let's change this. I think this is 50. I'll save that. And then the padding is all around this div, all around the header. I don't need to add padding to the H1 and also to the hyperlinks. It would just be on the whole header. So there's my header. I'll do my little semicolon so I can do another style. And I'm going to do padding. And let's go for 50 pixels maybe. I normally do the semicolon just in case I'm going to do another line. So I'll save that. And let's see what that looks like. Hey, there we go. That's really good. Oh, I can't get that font size to be correct, can I? I thought it was too big before. Unless I change it to 100 now. We'll see in a minute. That's fine. Now, the one thing you might have noticed is you'll say, but hold on a second. What's this white edge doing around the outside? That doesn't appear in the web page that we're copying. And what happens is the browser, as I think I've said before, has kind of default styles. And one of the default styles it has is it puts this lovely little border around. So it's kind of like some margin around the whole page, around the whole body. And we don't really want that. So we have to override it and we have to kind of clear it out. So let's do that. I'll go to the body, and currently, it sets a default margin of 10 pixels or something like that. So I'm going to put margin, and then I'm going to just put 0 and then put my semicolon. And that will now kind of reset it. If I save that and refresh, it's now gone, which is great. I've kind of overridden the browser default. Let's just work out this H1. It seems to be just way too small. If I go for 100 pixels and refresh, is that right? It's still too big. Maybe it's 75. I made this file earlier, so I can't remember what I put. Let's have a look. Is that about right? Okay, that's about right. That looks pretty good, actually. Maybe that is correct. Okay, cool. So we've kind of done the first section. Now, there's a slightest bit of difference, but I don't mind. That's close enough for me. So there we go. Oh, so the other thing, I guess the colour of these hyperlinks aren't great, are they? They're a bit of a weird colour, and it's supposed to be blue. So we'll just change those. Okay, it looks like a purpley colour, which is the default for the browser. So what I'll do is let's come down here, and we're going to style our hyperlinks. So I'll put A, which is the A tag for hyperlinks, and I'm just going to change the colour. And the colour here that I've been using, it looks just like some kind of random blue, and it can be any blue, to be honest. We're not that fussed. There was one that was kind of fun. It was midnight blue. There we go. I'll put my little semicolon just in case I need it. Save. refresh, and there we go. And now it's just like a nicer color blue, which is a little bit more like what we're expecting. Okay, so there we go. That's kind of done. I've done the first section. Brilliant. So let's not stop and enjoy it. Let's just keep going. Wait, I don't need to save the HTML file. Let's just keep going. So now what we'll do is we'll move on to the second section. So this isn't a header. It's now just a div. You know, it's just a section. It's a blue section. It's got text. It's got more text, an image, more text, and a button. So let's make this. Now, it's not, like I said, it's not a header. It's not a footer. It's just a section. So what we do is we use a div in that situation. I'll just do a couple of breaks to make it easy to read. So we're going to make a div, and we're going to close it. And then in between the div, what did we say we need? Now, we're not going to call this an H1 because you only really want one H1 on the page, which is the page title. So this could be an H2. It's kind of like a subheading of the page. So we're going to make an H2 tag, and it's called about. So let's type in about. I can save that. And then just below that, I've got some italics text. So I think we can use paragraph for that one. So just below, we'll do a P tag. And then there's I'll just copy it actually. This is just a little bit of Latin I grabbed from the internet. We'll paste that, and then we'll save it. And then do you remember italics? You can just use a tag for this. You don't have to kind of use, CSS, and you can just use HTML. So if I type in I, then I means put everything in the middle in italics. So that's one way of doing it. So it's a bit of a shortcut from, styling it in CSS and things like that. So that's good. I like that. We now need our image. Do you remember how to make an image? It was, the tag is img. And then we need to put in like a source. And we'll do that in a minute. That will take a few seconds. So we'll leave that. Then I've got more paragraphs. Let's do another paragraph tag. P. Now this one, it's a lot of text. And what I'll do is I'll grab this and I'll copy it. And then I'll put it in between my P tags. Now, this is one thing that happens in Visual Code Studio where you have to kind of scroll left and right, and that's a bit embarrassing. So on a Mac, it's Alt or Option, and then M, I believe. Oh, no, it's not. Was it S? Oh, no, I can't even remember. That sucks. Oh, I can't remember what it was. Was it R? Or P? Was it P? Do you know what? I'm so sorry. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. I'll find that out and I'll put it in the comments. I'll put it in the description below. But there is a shortcut where you can make it that it just wraps. Okay, because otherwise you're going to be scrolling left and right, which is rubbish. Okay, but we'll leave that. That's fine. I should have done more homework, shouldn't I? And then finally, below that we have our button. And we know how to do buttons. We just do the tag of button. And then what did it say? Contact us. Contact us. Save. So now if we have a look at our little HTML page, let's see what that looks like. That's not bad, is it? I mean, that's not too bad. Everything's in the center because remember the body has told the whole text everything to go in the middle. Also, it's career font, which is great. That's what we want. It's in the center. It's missing the image because we haven't put in the image yet, but it has got my italics, which is great. And one thing you'll notice is that the button, that doesn't have the career font. And that's because, the browser just says, oh, this is a button. It doesn't inherit those kind of styles. So when it comes to buttons, you have to kind of override it. You can't just use, what's happening in the parent or higher up on the page. So unfortunately, we're going to have to style that button just a little bit separately. But that is everything we need. The only thing that's missing, like I said, is the image. So let's go and grab an image. What you have to do you remember we have to put in the attribute, which is src equals, and then our little speech marks. These are all my recordings. And do you remember we used this website called Lorem Pixum, which I think is brilliant because you can just use just like if you copy and paste this URL, it will show you just kind of a random picture. And I like to use the grayscale one because I think it looks quite nice. So if I grab this and paste it in, then what it means is that it's going to look for that image at that particular web address. Now, the standard size that they give you here is 200 by 300, but if we change that to like 800 by 300, it just looks a little bit nicer, and you'll see that in a second. So let's save that, and then we'll refresh it. And there we go. We now have a nice little image in the middle, which is pretty cool. And then every time I refresh the page, it changes, doesn't it? Which is quite nice. So what else do we need to do to this section? So first off, it needs the blue background, and then all the text needs to be white. So we can do that. That's not scary at all. Well, obviously it's going to be on the whole section, on the whole div. We want the text to be white. On the whole div, it's the background color of blue. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's have a look. The div isn't called anything, it's just div. So I need to give it a class or an ID. Now at this point, I might think, I don't know, shall I give it a class or an ID? I tell you what, we'll give it an ID because we do need to scroll down to this at some point. So let's do div equals, and we'll call it about because it's the about section. And then I'll scroll up and I'll define what that means. When you're defining a ID, then you need to use the hashtag about. And then what did we say we need it to do? We need it to have a blue background. So we'll go background color. And I think we're going for midnight blue, aren't we? Yep. I'll do my semicolon because I'm going to do some more stuff. And then I want my text to be white. Now I can't put text is white on the body because that's black. I can only do it within this particular div. So let's do it here. So if I go color white, that should be good. And then I will have a look and see what's happening. Hey, brilliant. There we go. So I've got my blue background now, and I've got my white text in the middle. So that's what I'm looking for. Great. And then I spoke about the button here, contact us. I need to actually style that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to, have we not defined it yet? Okay, we haven't defined buttons. So let's go for button. If I type in button and I open the curly brackets, it then, what do I need to do to it? I need to change the font family, that's for sure. It needs to be Courier. And then, is there anything else I need to do to it? I think that's pretty good, isn't it? Yeah, okay, so there we go. So now Contact Us is now in the correct font, so that's good. Now the only thing we've noticed here is we've got this kind of white border that's going on here. And that's going to go in a minute once we kind of add in a little bit more padding in the div section. So let's just do that. Let's go back to my little file. And what we have is we're working on the about section. And what we know is we need padding, a little bit like the top section here where we added padding. We're going to do exactly the same thing. So let's go for this section here. We're going to go padding. And it was 50 pixels we're using. So I'll just save that and refresh the page. There we go. And that's kind of sorted itself out. What else do we need to do in this section? That's looking pretty good, isn't it? It looks, I don't think there's that much we need to do, if I'm honest. I think we're pretty good. I can add some padding to the button. Let's just see if we need to do any padding. Yeah, maybe there's a little bit of padding on the button. So do you remember we said that the text in the middle, the space between the text and the button edge? Let's have a look. So let's go to my button and we'll add a little bit of padding. Let's just do, I don't know, 10 pixels. See if that looks right. And we'll refresh it. It looks a bit big, but it does look quite nice, actually. Maybe it even looks better than the one we're trying to copy. So that's that section, and we're pretty happy with that. That's the About section. Now, the one thing we need to do, though, is in these hyperlinks at the top, if I click on About, it's supposed to take me to the About section. But look, if I click on it, nothing happens because I haven't actually put a hyperlink here. And this is what's cool about IDs. What I can do is I can actually just put About. I mean, we're not going to a specific web page, we're just staying on this one particular page, so I don't need to type in HTTPS and all that kind of stuff. I just put hashtag about, and now if I refresh the page and I click on About, it's going to scroll me to the About section, which is great. That's what we wanted. Now we can now move on to the next section, which is the Services section, which is pretty much the same. It's just inverted. Everything's kind of a white background but blue text. So this shouldn't be too difficult. All I'm going to really need to do is pick up what we've already done and copy it. Let's put a little bit of a space there. Now, it needs a different ID because you can only use one ID at a time. We're going to go for Services, and I'm going to need that because my hyperlink up here needs to go down to it. So let's just add that in, Services. So if I can spell it right. So what that means is if I now click on, right, let's just refresh my page. That's the wrong one. If I refresh this page, I've now got my About section and then my Services. I haven't changed any of the content in it yet. But if I click on Services, it will now go down to the right section here. So we're getting there. The reason it doesn't push it to the top is because I've reached the bottom of the page. There's nothing else to show. I've realized there isn't a button in the Services section, is there? So we need to get rid of that one. Let's get rid of this button. Okay, everything else should be about, I can't believe I can't remember the shortcut to get rid of this, to add the wrapping text. Everything else about looks good. Oh, it isn't called About, it's called Services. Let's change that one and save and refresh that page. That's looking more like what it's supposed to. Now it needs some padding, doesn't it? Let's add some padding to the whole thing again. So again, I come up to ID, Services, and I need to define that. Let's put this here, just below About. So I type in Services, and then Again, we're going to need padding. Let's go for 50 pixels. I'll save that and refresh it. And now that's looking good too. Brilliant. So I've got my header at the top. I've got my about section. The hyperlinks work. That's great. And it goes down to services. That's great. Now the only thing is the text color's black, but in this one here, it's blue. So I need to change that. So what I would have to do is I'd have to come into the services section and say that the color is midnight blue. Midnight blue, yep. And was there anything else? I don't need to change the font or anything, so it's all correct. Yeah, and there you go. It's just changed all the font in that section to blue. So this is looking pretty good. I think the last thing we have to do is we now need to make the footer, which is right at the bottom. Now the footer is really easy. It just says copyright 2022. And there's obviously I could just type in footer and just type in that text and style it. But I've got a little bit of a trick. Well, it's not a trick. I'm just showing you how. This is kind of when you're coding, you have to kind of think to yourself, wait, is that the best way to do it? Because you want your code to be as clean as possible. So let's make a footer. Great. And then inside the footer, it says copyright 2020, right? 2022. Now I could put that in a P tag, but I think it's just going to work as it is, to be honest. Let's have a look, see if it works. Okay, cool. I need to style it so it's got a blue background, and then that will look better. So let's go up to the top. And let's come here and just define. So the tag is called footer. And I'll open my curly brackets. And again, it's background color blue. Midnight blue. And then the font needs to be white. So what's it currently? It's currently black. Okay, so that's no good. I need it to be white. The color needs to be white. Let's save that and refresh. That's good. Oh, what's happened there? That's not what I expected. Color white. Okay. When something doesn't appear as you think it should, you need to check your codes. This is good. We've got a bit of debug in here. I was expecting my text to be white, but it's not. It's black, and I don't know why. So I've looked at my code, and all I typed in was color white, and then I put a colon, and you're not supposed to do that. It's a semicolon. I mean, you don't need one at the end, but I normally do a semicolon to prepare me if I'm going to add another row, and I don't forget it. So now if I save it and refresh, it will now be the right color. It needs some padding though, because that looks horrendous. So we'll put in some padding. Again, we can put 50 pixel padding, and then I save that and refresh it. And so there we go. That looks about right, doesn't it? Yeah, that looks excellent. So that actually looks about right. I mean, there's maybe a bit of cleanup we can do, but that's not too bad. Let's see if it works. I click about, it goes down to about. Love it. Click on services, it goes down to services. That's cool. Okay, everything looks right. Now, although it looks right, there's a few things to note here. So the first thing is that, do you remember in this one that we looked at here, it had this nice little scrolling effect. So if I click on about, it scrolls to it. And if I click on services, it scrolls to it. So what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to add in a bit of code here. And I haven't shown you how to do this. So this is like a new thing we're going to do now. What I'm going to need to do is I need to come right up to the top. I'm going to need to go to the HTML level, because remember, HTML is an actual tag. It's this tag up here, and inside the HTML is the head and the body. So I'm actually going to have to take the HTML itself, open my curly brackets, whoops, and the code is this. It's scroll behavior. No, that's not how you spell it at all. Scroll behavior, and then it's smooth. And I'll put my little semicolon, and that's it. So if I save that and refresh it, now if I do kind of internal hyperlinking, it's going to scroll nicely. So that's all I needed to do to get that effect to happen. It's just at the HTML level, scroll behavior and smooth. And then the next thing was, you always want your code to be as clean as possible. And you might have noticed this while we were doing this, but this whole background color midnight blue and color white and padding 50 pixels, I've got a few times overnight. There we go. Look, about and the footer are exactly the same. Background color midnight blue, color is white, and padding is 50 pixel. So there's a few choices I can do here. So one is I could actually say, all right, this style here is going to be applicable to two things. It's going to be applicable to the about section and also the footer. So what I did was I just put a comma and then put footer. So now I don't even need to have this bit here because it's the same style. So I've said this style here, apply it to the about section and the footer. So if I save that and refresh it, it should look exactly the same, and it does. Nothing's changed, which was kind of one way of doing it. The other way I could have done it was, let's just remove that, is I could kind of keep them separate. But what I could do is I could use a class which is called like, I don't know, blue section, which has these properties. So we could do it that way. And this is what I mean. There's always different ways of doing it. You just have to work out what's the best way to do it. So let's do this. If I just delete the footer style at the moment, if I was to do that and then refresh the page, the style was going to go kind of back to how it was by default. So let's do this. Let's change this where this is actually going to be a class. So the class is going to be, we'll call it a blue section. Right now, I've defined the blue section up here, but I haven't written it anywhere. So nothing is actually kind of using this class at the moment. So I need to kind of go and tag things with blue section. So which ones are my blue sections? So one of them is about. Now there's already an ID here, and I could delete that because I'm no longer styling the ID, but I need the ID for the hyperlink. So all I'm going to do is I'm now going to say, although there's an ID for about, there's also a class, and it's blue section. And so if I save that, now on the about section, there's an ID. I'm not styling that ID. I'm just using it for the hyperlink because I need it here to scroll down to the page. But then the class is blue section. And then what I can do is I can come down to the footer and I can add the same thing. I can tag it with this little class. There we go. So footer space blue section. I hope that's kind of makes sense what I've done there. Just to recap what I've done. I have defined a style, a class called blue section, and then what I've done is I've gone to the about section and said, yeah, blue section, the about section, you need that blue stuff, and then footer, you need it too. So I've added that class to both of them, whereas before I'd defined that style twice. And if I save that and refresh, it should now be as it was before. Okay, so there you go. There's that's kind of I guess a masterclass in what you've learned so far. And like I said before, this isn't the best web page you've ever seen in your life. It's a little bit 80s or even 90s. I say it's a little bit 90s. But the thing is, you're able to see that you can create divs, headers, footers. You can style things. You can target things. You can create buttons. You can create hyperlinks. All this kind of stuff. But the one thing I'd say is, although we can do this and this looks okay now, this isn't really sustainable. The way we've made this isn't sustainable. And I just want to kind of show you one example of that to help you realize why we need to keep going and learn more code, because this doesn't quite cut it. So here we go. If I was to reduce the browser width, okay, everything is going to stay in the center because remember, everything's text aligned. So this is great. But I'm going to get to the point where I get to about here, and there's a problem because I said that the width of this image is 800 pixels, but my browser width is less than 800 pixels now, so it's no longer centered. It's saying, hey, I'm 800 pixels wide, and I am not changing. So even if you make your browser width really small, it still tries to be 800 pixels. So we need to do a bit of work in order to fix that. And there's obviously other things we need to fix as well. Like you shouldn't really use just random hyperlinks for your navigation and things like that. And also, the padding we used was 50 pixels from the top. But what if you've got a really small screen and you've only got like a few hundred pixels to work with? You won't see any of this good content. You'd maybe just see like half of the title. So there's so much more we can do, but hopefully you've seen that what we've learned so far means we can actually make web pages. We can write code, we can add classes, we can add IDs, we can define styles, and we get in there. So stick with us and we'll keep going. All right, I'll see you in the next video.